Are you an athlete that struggled with joint pain, ankle issues, knee pain, hip problems, shoulder pain, low back pain? Do you feel like you lost the natural bounce that you had as a kid, the freedom of movement, unlimited energy? By the end of this video, you will have gained a new perspective on training that you can add to your program and possibly even deal with the problems that I just listed, regardless of what sport you play. You will also learn the secret of elite natural athletes and how you can become an elite athlete yourself. And in the interest of time and condensing the information, because I want to get you as much information as I possibly can, I've made notes and I'm going to go through them as I'm taking you through the exercises. So the exercises are from Hyperarch Fascial Training by Coach Chong. And the research that I'm going to talk about is my own research that includes his. So if you want to check his stuff out, go to his YouTube, go to his Patreon. It's all amazing stuff. Now, before I go through the tools that you need to do this training, if you want to stick around and watch the first time before you do it, I'm going to explain the concepts as I go through the exercises and you can learn. And then maybe next time you can do it with me, but it's going to be like doing it side by side. The materials that you need are a tennis ball to roll at your feet, a cotton towel. It doesn't have to be cotton, but cotton is ideal. And then a small stone or marble or a ring, something to put in between your toes, and then something to keep track of time, a stopwatch. So the first part of the exercise is rolling at the bottom of your feet for 2 to 3 minutes, and we're gonna do this together. I'm gonna demonstrate how it's done, and then I'm gonna explain some concepts. So you can go ahead and start your timer. Maybe I'll put one on the screen, and you're gonna roll up and down from the heel all the way to the ball of the foot, and you're gonna roll out the bottom of your feet. Now, the reason you do this, now you can keep going and rolling at your feet, I'll explain it. The reason you do it for 2 to 3 minutes is because the fascia on the base of your foot is really thick, and so it takes time to break it down and make it more malleable, okay? So as you're doing that, I got the timer here. You're gonna go for 2 minutes on one foot and then 2 minutes for the other. And I just wanna tell you about some research that I've done. So until about 30 years ago, fascia was thought to just be an inert filler material. It was removed when they would dissect cadavers, and the fascia in a living organism is actually very different, has many different qualities, okay? So when you cut open a body, the fascia collapses because it's a tensegrity structure. And all tensegrity means is it's tension integrity, also known as floating compression. So if you think of a structure that is held up by bars or struts, which you could say is the bones, and then strings that connect them, and the tension, the internal tension, or it's also called floating compression, is holding up the struts without any of them touching each other. So your bones are held up by the connective tissue, which are like the strings, and they're all compressed together in what's called tensegrity. So if you want to Google tensegrity structures, you can see that there's maybe only 3 bars that are touching the ground, and then all these other bars are built up and being held together by compression. Okay, so the internal tension is what's holding them up. And that whole structure collapses when you cut it open. The first textbook on fascia was only published, so you're at about 2 minutes, you can switch feet, you can now start rolling out your other foot. The first textbook on fascia was only published in 2015. So it's only 10 years ago that it started to become put in the mainstream. So this is a reason why it hasn't been integrated into mainstream education. This is one of the reasons I want to bring it, is because I'm discovering this and I'm learning. I'm nowhere perfect on the fascial optimization level, but I have seen massive gains from my experience with it, and I just want to share it with you. As soon as I know, I'm not going to wait until I'm perfect until I can share something that might help you. So the properties of fascia are still being explored in like the cutting edge of science. And I want to liken the study of fascia in a bigger scale. So the study of fascia is more like paying attention to the context of the body as opposed to the content. The content would be like the object, and then the context would be the space. Or the content is the organism, and the context is the environment. So the context of athletic training is overlooked often in the same way as context often is, but it's the context that gives the content meaning. This might be a little bit of a lofty concept, but the general idea is that you can see the fascia as the context in which your body operates. So what fascia actually is, it's a continuous, multi-dimensional connected tissue that surrounds and penetrates every single muscle, bone, nerve, and organ. And it creates the structural integrity and fluid communication in your body. And I'm reading from notes because I want to be super clear and concise and not waste time because there's a lot of information to cover. So that's 2 minutes. Once you've rolled out the bottom of each of your feet, the first step now is, after you've rolled out your feet, is to grab your towel and you're gonna do what's called elevated towel curls. So you're gonna be standing in a staggered stance, and I'm just gonna explain as I do it. Staggered stance with the weight into the ball of your foot. You can start with it 50-50 between feet and work up to 60% of your body weight into the foot. And you're gonna work on curling the toes. So these toes have joints. There's a joint here, and then there's a joint here. And then these ones have 3, and this one has 2. You wanna curl the toes in place. Now, you wanna do this for up to 2 minutes. So these first 2 exercises, rolling out the balls of the feet or rolling out the feet and then doing the towel curls, you can do almost every day. There's nothing wrong with doing them every day. The ones following you'll do every other day, but these 2 are like the beginner exercises, and you'll notice as you do it. So we're gonna start in just a second with the timer. You'll notice that you'll start to burn in like the calf usually, and this usually means that your fascial system is not optimized. You'll know that your fascial system is optimized when your glutes start to burn, okay? So we'll get to this in a second, but the fascial training is all about connecting the feet to the glutes, and then the first step of activating that is getting the toes active. Okay, so I'm gonna start the timer, and I'm just gonna demonstrate. So once you start the timer, you're just gonna start curling your toes. As you're less connected and it hurts, you can put less of your body weight in the foot, but a very key point is that your heel is elevated. So you're in a staggered stance, your heel is elevated off the ground, your weight is in the ball of the foot, and you're just curling your toes. You're trying to curl all the toes, okay? So go ahead. If you need to take a break because it's cramping, that's fine, but try to work up to 2 minutes, okay? So we're gonna go for 2 minutes, and that's like the minimum, as I talk a little bit more about the concept. So fascia is the body's primary communication network, and it transmits all the mechanical, chemical, and electrical signals through the body. It's like the highway, it's like the power lines, okay? So that's just another definition. Another definition or way of thinking of it is it's a network of collagen fibers. So collagen is like protein, except it's like nanotubes. So you can think of it as like this helix structure of 3 tubes being wound together into like a rope, and these can vary from being very like thin. The fibers can be like a thin spider web like fabric. So if you put your tongue to the inside of your cheek, that's all collagen. That's like the wet fabric of fascia. It's like a spider web that holds fluid. And it goes all the way up, so that's like the thin version of fascia, and then the thicker version is like industrial rubber bands. So it's these massive like layers and layers and layers and layers of these collagen fibers that create your tendons. So your tendon is like an elastic, okay? So when you pull on it, it has massive pulling strength and elasticity, okay? Another property of fascia is that it's viscoelastic. So if you're at 2 minutes, now you can switch feet and do towel curls on the other foot. Fascia is viscoelastic, meaning it's a fluid. So it's kind of, it's hard to explain because it has so many properties. That's why I'm reading from notes. I don't want to, be that kid in presentation who's reading off the PowerPoint, but it's important that I don't miss any points. So it's a fluid, it's like honey. And under tension, it becomes elastic and rebounds to its original state. So it's like a fluid, but as soon as you apply pressure to it, it becomes like a rock. Okay, so that's how you create power, like relaxed power, effortless power. Okay, so when you contract it, it goes from being soft to being rock hard. Okay, and the more fluid it can be, the more elastic energy we can create. So as a general concept or context of athletic training, the more relaxed you can be, the softer and more malleable your fascia can be, the more you can contract it. If your fascia is stuck being like a rock all the time, then you can't really contract it and it won't transmit the signal. When it's really, really bad, what happens is when your fascia stops being runny, and not runny, but like less viscous, like honey, if it's not running, then it'll become hard. When you're making honey or ketchup, like in a factory, you need to vibrate it so that it is always liquid. Because if it stagnates, then it becomes solid and you can't contract it. And sometimes when it's really bad, it turns into fibrosis. So fibrosis is what old people get when they can't move their fascia anymore. It's like stuck. So you want to avoid that. A benefit of this training is that it'll start to slowly remove adhesions. So adhesions is when the fascia sticks together. It's like if you think of a spider web and then there's like these little like centers of the web where they're stuck together. You want to avoid that so that you can transmit the energy. So that's 2 minutes. I'm going to stop and reset the timer. So after the towel curls you've done on each foot, you're going to grab a marble. You're going to put it in between your big toe and your second toe, just underneath the second toe. So it'd be like the index finger, like this. And this is to maintain fascial tension as you do this exercise. So what you're going to do is, don't need the towel anymore. You're going to pick up the stone or the marble or the ring. And this is what creates fascial tension. And all you're going to do is effortlessly swing forward and backwards. Just take a step forward and back. This foot that you're standing on has a slight knee bend, and you're maintaining toe control on the foot that you're standing on. You know you're doing it right and you're holding fascial tension when the anterior tibial tendon is you can see the anterior tibial tendon. That's how you know that there's fascial tension, okay? So you're gonna swing back and forth effortlessly like that. I'm gonna start the timer. And depending on what level you're at, you may not feel it in your glutes, but eventually you will feel it in your glutes. The goal of this is to connect the feet to the glutes, okay? So another property of fascia is that it's piezoelectric, meaning that when you put mechanical tension into it, so like landing on a jump, it transmits it into electrical energy. If you're not efficient at transmitting it into electrical energy, the joints take the load, okay? So if you're muscle driven, if your fascia is not functioning properly and you're purely using muscle to move your body, it's disconnected and all the pressure goes into your ankle, goes into your knee, goes into your hip, goes into your low back, okay? This is really common. So the piezoelectric effect also goes the other way. So you can transmit electrical signal into mechanical tension, which is like the force that you can transmit, okay? Another thing, the last a property of fascia is that it's mostly water. Okay, so if you're not hydrated, one of the main points of this training and keeping your fascia healthy is being hydrated with mineralized water. So you want to at least have salt and ideally potassium, magnesium. And then there's a bunch of different like hydration, like ways to get minerals. So if you look up like minerals, Irish sea moss, that's a good way to get it. And you can actually, like fascia manufactures and the fluid that's running through it has hyaluronic acid, and one molecule of hyaluronic acid holds 1,600 molecules of water. And the way that you generate this hyaluronic acid is by holding pressure on an adhesion. And then for at least 2 minutes, I'm going to go through the fascia rolling with the tennis ball on a different video, because just for time's sake. But you can generate hyaluronic acid, which will hydrate the tissues, and that's what this helps with as well. You can generate these the actual fascia cells from this training. So that's 2 minutes. You can switch feet and do the effortless swing on the other foot. So what's the point of doing this? The point is to connect the feet to the glutes. So the neurological connection between the feet to the glutes, the fascial connection, does not require muscle mass. okay? So this is why the skinny athletic kid who's just like 14 or 15, he can go up and dunk with no effort off 1 foot. Everyone had those kids at their school where they're just like naturally athletic. And it's not like they had big muscles. So the mainstream is always thinking you have to have bigger muscles to generate more force, but that's not necessarily true. And it can even be detrimental if your fascial system is not functioning well. If you train in isolation all the time, then it won't necessarily help you co-contract the muscles. So that's the key of athleticism, is that they can contract all their muscles all at once. So it's not just in isolation. The plantar, why are we training the feet so much, is the plantar fascia is literally the foundation of the building. So in the floating compression structure, where like the reason I'm doing this is like these are like the bones or the struts or the bars of the structure. There's 2 on the ground for us, and then every other one is built on top, held together by strings. And this is called tensegrity. So we want to train the feet because this is the foundation of the building. Now, fascia is a holistic organ. So there's a fascial line that goes from the feet all the way up the back line. It's called the superficial back line, that goes up from the plantar fascia through the calves, all the way up through the low back, through the middle of the spine, and up to the top of your head. So if you pull on the fascia of a body or a dead body, if you pull on the foot, the head will move. Okay, so we always want to train. We always start at the feet. The feet are the most important thing. Okay, if we walked on our hands, we would train our hands. Okay, you're thinking like, how does the foot, and you can stop with the marble swing. That's been 2 minutes. You might ask yourself, how does training the foot help with my shoulder issues? Well, that's because fascia is one continuous system. It's one continuous interpenetrating matrix of connective tissue. So if you train the feet, it'll have an effect on the rest of the body. It'll even affect like your neck pain and stuff like that. Okay, so I'm gonna show you the third exercise and then keep explaining the concepts. So the third exercise is the gait cycle. Gait just means walking. And all you're gonna do is you're gonna pick up the stone with fascial tension, slight knee bend, toe control on the foot you're standing on, and you're gonna move like you're underwater. You're gonna do this walking cycle. So basically, you're standing on 1 foot, and like you're underwater, you're going to do this sort of walking motion. Now, if you need to hold on to something, that's perfectly fine and normal at the start, but eventually you want to come to the point where you can balance without anything like that, okay? And the purpose of this is to connect your feet to your glutes. So you're gonna do that for 2 minutes. I'm gonna start my timer for 2 minutes, and you're gonna do this, the gait cycle, okay? So I started the timer. So the difference between an elite natural athlete and an average Joe is that they have this connection. So it's actually impossible to have athletic movement without fascial connection. So if you've been training, if you've ever trained in your life, which you have, because you wouldn't be watching this if you haven't, you have been training fascia. And the difference between you, maybe if you have pain, the difference between you and like an elite natural kid is that their connection is really strong. And this can be gifted like genetically, or it can happen when you grow up and you're always barefoot. You're training barefoot and you never even seen a weight. Like the super gifted soccer players who come out of like Brazil and stuff, they always train barefoot. That's like the main like same thing between all of them, is that they grew up with this natural ability to play barefoot. So the key to athleticism is co-contraction. So this idea of like your foot contracts at the same time as your calf, at the same time as your hamstring, same time as your glute. Connection that goes through at 270 kilometers per hour, that like electrical signal where they're all going at the same time, and it's effortless. So if you zoom in on a slow-mo professional athlete, like a soccer athlete, you can see their muscles co-contract at the same time. This is very different than doing leg extensions, okay? It's like you can see that it's very flexed, but it's effortless. It's not like an isolated movement, and you can see it's defined. You can tell the difference between an elite athlete and a non-elite athlete by the definition in their muscles. You can see the separation in their calf. their gastroc to their soleus. You can see the separation in their muscles. They're more defined. Okay, so this is different from like bodybuilding. Bodybuilding is like isolation to grow the size of the muscle, but athletic training is always holistic. It's always holistic. You can benefit from growing your muscle, and that's been 2 minutes, so you can switch to doing the gait cycle on the other foot. It can be helpful training your muscles and muscle size, but only if your fascial connection can carry the force. The muscles are like power plants, so they generate the power, but the power lines are the fascia. And if the power lines are not functioning, then the force that you can generate with one quad is not gonna help you. Okay, we all know like the massive bodybuilder who doesn't move well. Just because having big muscles, it doesn't make you a good athlete. Now, one thing I want to point out is that the fascia of children functions perfectly. They have effortless, unlimited energy, elastic energy. They're bouncing. If they fall down the stairs, they will bounce down the stairs. And that's because their whole body is just like an elastic. And you can maintain that elasticity by doing this training and rolling out your fascia, which I'll make in a different video. And the goal of this is to come back to being like athletic like you were a kid. So in terms of fascia like training and recovery, you can roll out. I'm going to make a video about rolling out your fascia with a tennis ball. And what it does is your fascia actually has cells. It's called fibroblasts, and then the more advanced cell is the myofibroblast. Excuse me. And you can stimulate the production of these cells using HFT, the hyperarch fascial training, Coach Chong Z. And this will help the fascia to remodel and become more connected, so transmit force more efficiently. So that's been 2 minutes. So after you've done rolling out the feet, the towel curls, the marble swing or the stone swing, and then the gait cycle, the last exercise, which is variable person to person, is the hop. Okay, so you're gonna practice hopping, and if you haven't felt your glutes up to this point, you're primed to feel your glutes for this one. Okay, so all you're gonna do is you're gonna be start with 2 feet, and all you're gonna do is you're gonna try to keep your heels are gonna be elevated. You don't need to keep your heels off the ground, but the weight should be in the ball of the foot. Okay, and all you're gonna do is 2 to 3 times per second with your timer, about at this rate. All you're gonna do is hop. Okay, and you want to see if you can activate your glutes. And you can tell if this is functioning by the anterior tibial tendon is prominent as you do it, okay? So you're gonna be hopping like this for about 2 minutes. It should start to burn. If it burns too much or if it burns in the wrong area, you can take a break, but eventually you can work up to doing this for 2 to 3 minutes, okay? So you're gonna do the double foot, the double leg hyperarch hop. Okay, so I'm gonna set the timer just so I can stay on track with you. So I'm gonna start for 2 minutes. So the problem with doing excessive weight training is that it causes micro tears in the muscle, which is what stimulates it to grow, but it also causes micro tears in the fascia, especially depending on how you do it and how much weight you use. Okay, the problem with this is that fascia takes longer to repair than muscle. So if you're on this 6-day split, or you're constantly breaking down, rebuilding, what your fascia will do to repair is it's concerned about survival only, right? So it won't repair in an organized way if it's not given enough time. So an example of this is if you cut your hand or you cut your arm, the scar that forms, that line, that white line after it closes up, that's collagen. And that's what's happening in your muscles when you break them down so frequently without giving enough time for recovery, is that it repairs in a disorganized way. It's like a scar. This is how adhesions form. And the adhesions are stopping the transmission of energy. So if your leg is full of adhesions, and you can feel the adhesions by like tenderness and soreness, sometimes it's even electrical, you can feel the adhesions, and it's stopping the signal from being transmitted. The signal being transmitted is the key to athleticism. I had this problem, which has gone away since, but even while I was here in Fair Islands, I had like numbness in my toes, and this is called neuropathy. And I realized just from a course that I was doing about fascial rolling that I found an adhesion on my IT band that felt electrical. And then she mentioned that the electrical adhesions are sometimes related to neuropathy. And after like a week of rolling out my fascia, the neuropathy went away. So I can fully feel my toes now. But it was just a really weird sensation. So that's been 2 minutes. You can continue if you want to just push that burn to the next level. But if you're just starting out, you can stay there. And then in terms of the beginner exercises, that's it for that. But I'm going to show you the advanced. If you're feeling really sore in your glutes, then I'd say stop now. But then the next step is the single leg hyper arc hop. So you can do it in place. And right now I can feel my glutes like fire up. One note is that you don't want to manually contract your glutes. This is a subconscious response. This is like an automatic thing, because once you get fatigued in sports, you'll go back to your old programming. So it's not necessarily about consciously, you're becoming aware of your glute firing, connecting to your foot, but you're not consciously contracting it. It's more like a yin, it's like a context type of approach where you don't force it, you're just training and becoming aware of it. You're using most of your intention to connect your foot to your glutes. So you're gonna do a single foot, and I would probably only do this up to a minute. I would start with just a minute. And you want the weight to be in the ball of the foot. Your head is over your foot. You're doing this single leg hyper arc hop, okay? So you can do this for up to a minute. And then once you reach a minute, you can switch sides. I'm gonna start the timer for another 2 minutes. Once you reach 1 minute, you switch feet, okay? So you can just start by going straight up and down. Now, the thing about getting DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness, is we tend to think of it as what you need to grow. So you're thinking like, if you're not sore, you didn't work hard enough, like no pain, no gain. But the problem with doing this, especially in season, is that you are unable to perform for like 2 or 3 days after. I struggled with this throughout college, my college career. And the problem with muscle soreness is it inhibits you from using the muscle. And I'm not saying being sore is always bad, because we tend to think of it in the mainstream muscle driven mindset that you need to be sore in order for your workout to mean anything. So we're coming up on a minute, you can switch feet. Now I'm trying to present a new, different perspective that you can apply. I'm not saying throw out everything you know about weight training, but I'm saying like there is a different perspective, especially in season, because you want to perform at practice every day. If you can't practice because you're lifting and you're too sore, then you're gonna play bad, and then you're not getting the reps that you want in game, especially in game. If you're sore for in game, you're just kind of screwed. Okay. Another problem with the general idea of pain that you get from weightlifting. We all know that you can make massive athletic gains from weightlifting, from doing power cleans, and it can help you a lot with the sport. But a lot of people experience, and if you don't experience pain from doing back squat or doing spinal compression, doing heavy weights, if you don't experience any pain, God bless you. Like, that's amazing. Like seriously, you're probably an elite athlete and you probably gain a lot from that. But for the average Joe, the average person who's trying to become elite, they have pain. So like I made a lot of gains from doing traditional weightlifting. I've been doing it for 10 years. I started when I was 13. I'm 23 now. It's grown me to be the athlete I am today. But the athlete I am today was experiencing a lot of pain, especially in the low back. I would have like chronic low back pain, and I just accepted it as like a part of being an athlete. So that's over 2 minutes. If you haven't stopped yet, you can stop and take a break. And just in the last few minutes, I'm just going to explain the most important points about the fascial training and why it's important. We need to seriously and honestly evaluate if the pain that you're experiencing is worth it, because the low back pain, like I've had such debilitating low back pain that it caused like depression, like suicidal thoughts, just because of like the enjoyment of life is not there. If you're not enjoying your life, you have to think about what is actually causing you to like be an elite athlete. If you're not healthy, if you're not injury free, you're not an elite athlete. You're not a professional athlete. If you can't function day to day, you're not enjoying your life. So although you can gain a lot from weight training, there's more drawbacks that are not spoken about, and we just kind of accept that as normal. Like the THP dude, Isaiah Rivera, who is like the highest vertical in the world, he's always talking about like how patellar tendinopathy is inevitable. Like it's gonna happen eventually. You always work up to a 4 out of 10 pain, and how you need to like this and that to manage your pain. I'm thinking like, damn, like I kind of want to have a long career where I'm healthy. Like my gains might not be as fast and as dramatic. I might not have the highest vertical ever, but at least I can function and perform every day at practice. And this is not saying to throw away weight training, but like maybe reducing the frequency and reducing the volume, the load, because if you're in season, like in soccer or especially in volleyball, you're jumping so much, you're already getting so much load. Off season is a little bit of a different story. So the other thing with joint pain is that it reduces your ability to for your muscle to function. So like if you have pain in your knee, it will neurologically disconnect you from using your quad because it's trying to protect you from pain. So if you have tendon pain, then you can't use your muscle anyways. You can't function fully anyways. So you're not even accessing your full power. Like this training, the point of this training is to make you more fascial driven such that you can build muscle on top of good function. Most people have dysfunction. Most people have imbalances. Most people have an injury that they are compensating for. I had an ankle injury, and I can tell like very clearly the difference between when I do the left foot versus the right foot in this training. I can feel that my left foot is less connected. The reason for this is the fascial structure is a tensegrity structure. So if the tension is lost in one point, so let's say you tear a ligament or a tendon on your ankle, that tension is lost and you'll create compensation patterns. I chronically walk a little bit more over to the left side. And if you're building muscle on top of dysfunction, it will exacerbate the dysfunction. If you're building muscle on top of disorganized fascia, it won't help you. Like the elite natural athlete will gain a lot from doing heavy squats, but that's because they can activate their glutes, they can activate their core. So you're connecting the feet to the glutes, to the core through the fascial spiral lines, okay? If you don't have that connection, your knees and your low back will bear the load of the weight training. So the weight training will not be as effective for an average Joe as opposed to an elite natural athlete. Because the elite athletes like just do squats. Like I love squats. It makes me jump so high. But then you're like, you do it, and even though on the outside the form is exactly the same, you might be doing the form perfectly, but internally, if your cells and your fascia is not functioning properly, you'll bear the load in the wrong places, even if on the outside it looks exactly the same. The elite athlete on the inside is built differently on a cellular level. Like their fascia and their muscles are literally built differently from the inside. Even if their muscles are skinny, you see like soccer players who have skinny legs, they can kick the ball insanely hard, like so hard. And like I've noticed, even as I've slowed down the weight training and I get skinnier, I still jump the exact same height or higher, and I'm more smooth and I enjoy it and I can practice every day and without the pain of like weightlifting. So like I said, if you lift weights and you feel amazing, God bless you. If you have pain, this might be an alternate perspective to consider. So I'm just gonna look through my notes just so I can stay concise. Okay, in terms of joint pain, the joints or the connective tissue like the tendons have very little blood flow. So it makes it hard to heal. If you've had a knee injury or an ankle injury, you know that it takes a long time to heal. And because there's no blood going through to heal it, right? So there's nothing carrying through it. But what is going through it is fascia and the fascial connection. And they did an experiment with rabbits where they had them have like a knee injury and they put artificial scaffolding, meaning like a structure, like a metal structure through their knee. They had one group of rabbits with the metal structure, or they both had the structure, but one of the groups, they would send electrical signals through. The group that had the electrical signals healed their broken tendon within like weeks, within like 4 to 6 weeks or like 3 weeks. The group that did not have the electrical signals never recovered. So you might, if you tear a ligament or something in your knee or if you have tendinopathy or you sprain your ankle, you may never heal if your fascia is not functioning. Okay, if we can defibrillate a heart that stopped using electrical signals, then we can defibrillate a tendon that has stopped healing with electrical signals by building the fascial connection. And the exercises I show you might seem trivial, but I promise I've noticed like a huge difference. Okay, and then this is the last section that I want to talk about. So this has to do with how your fascia and your nervous system relates to your consciousness. So consciousness is the source of your experience, it's awareness itself. And this isn't like a woo-woo, it's just your experience, it's I am what I am. And how it relates to fascia is that we always talk about muscle memory, but muscles do not have capacity to remember anything. It's the fascia that remembers, okay? And it's the fascia that recognizes the pattern. When we train the fascia, which you've been doing your whole life without knowing it, the fascia glides. So as you kick, as you co-contract, as you jump, the fascia is gliding and smoothly on top of one another. And you can glide and create these fascial structures in the same way every time. This is how Messi kicks accurately every single time. It's because the fascial connection is creating the accuracy. It glides the exact same way every time. It's like serving a volleyball. You serve the exact same way. It's the arm swing. The arm swing is the exact same thing every time. And this is not muscle memory. This is something I've learned. It's fascial memory. So if your fascia is not functioning properly, if you're like a bodybuilder, you're gonna have a hard time picking up new skills and maintaining the gains that you've made. Now, the state of our fascia like literally affects how we perceive the world. Our consciousness is perceived through or modulated by our brain waves. And there's a relationship between our brain waves and the state of our fascia as well as our breath. So this is the musical breathwork, Brooke McPoyle research. And she discovered that there's a relationship between how frequently you breathe, the state of your nervous system, and the condition of your fascia, meaning like the total amount of tension that you're holding, and your brain waves. And the lower your brain waves, the more relaxed you are, like sleeping or like just between sleeping is like totally relaxed. This is the problem with chronic stress, and people who are chronically stressed often get injured. And I'm going to talk about how breathing affects it in a different video because it's beyond the scope of this video. But the general idea is that if we're in fight or flight, if we're constantly in survival mode, we're gonna have a hard time modifying the state of your fascia. So during these exercises, you want to be calm. You want to be in a rest and digest state. You want to be breathing slowly because your fascia is like an autonomic nervous system thing. It's subconscious. So it'll function without you even being aware of it or consciously. You can't consciously change your fascia. That's different. There's a little bit of a nuance here where it's like you can hold a yin like type posture of intention where you hold the intention to have your fascia transform, but it's not like you can consciously contract. You can hold fascial tension in your hands or in your feet like I did with the marble, but the transformation is subconscious so that when you go out and try to perform your athletic skills, they happen naturally, and kids just have this automatically. So, and this is probably the most important point of the whole video. I know it's getting long, but this is like, stay with me because this is the most important part and the part that I want to contribute personally outside of the research that I'm putting together. As you roll out your fascia and optimize your fascial system and you align it with your breathing, your diaphragm is just all fascia. It's not a muscle. The part that moves your breathing is 100% fascia. As you optimize these, you will experience massive amounts of emotional relief and great joy because your movement is effortless. It's like being 20 pounds lighter. It's like the joy of walking on air. It's the joy of emotional relief. And this is where the work comes in that I feel like is overlooked and that I want to push to the leading edge of this research, is that your fascia doesn't know the difference between physical pain an emotional pain. So it's also a sensory organ, apart from all the other qualities. It's also a sensory organ. It holds emotions. And so as we release, you might have noticed a significant amount of discomfort if you've never done these exercises before. And the reason it's uncomfortable is because there's so much stuck emotion, especially if you had an injury. The fascia, the tissues of the fascia literally hold on to emotion. And it's not uncommon as you're doing fascial release, like I'll show you with the tennis ball, when you're doing your feet, when you're doing your calves and going up to a really sensitive area, you will feel negative emotions arise and coming out to be cleared. And this is the function of our consciousness. The function of our consciousness is to evolve and raise in level. And how we do that is by letting go of the negativity. And because our ego or our survival mechanism is always trying to keep us away from pain and always trying to protect us from pain. But the spiritual practice is looking at the pain, letting it be there. And as you're doing these exercises, as you're doing the toe curls and it just hurts, like it feels deeply uncomfortable because you're rewiring your nervous system. And the last thing your survival mechanism wants to do is experience pain. So turning towards the pain, and maybe not pain, but more like discomfort of change, is the biggest takeaway from these exercises. I can feel myself, like when I'm releasing the adhesions from the rolling or doing this training and feeling my glutes firing for the first time in years after they've been dormant, they've been asleep. I've been quad dominant my whole life, right? Since I've been training with weights. The feeling of walking on air is like a complete relief. And to speak on the point of elite naturals being built differently, it's literally like if you're not connected, it's like being a caterpillar, and then this is the metamorphosis of becoming a butterfly, and like being light and moving effortlessly. And you look the exact same on the outside, but on the inside you feel light and free. And this is the process of letting go of the negativity. And so if you feel discomfort, feel discouraged by these practices, then it's okay. It's like it's meant to be that way. And then as you grow as a person, the fascia will allow you to, it's like a vehicle for transformation. So your emotional state will become lighter. It's all connected in the sense that your consciousness is always having feedback between the state of your fascia and the rest of your body. So as your fascia releases and like lets go, you will experience relaxation and athletic performance as a result of that in a completely new dimension. So thank you so much for paying attention and watching this video. I hope you carry these exercises for the rest of your life, and I will see you in the next video. God bless.